Okay, we are live. So, hello everyone watching SK Live. Today I'm with Ultimate Kho Kho League CEO, Tenzing Niyogi. Welcome to have you. Hi, Tenzing.
Thank you so much.
Great. So, obviously, it's a Sunday, and I'm glad we could have you today on the show. And we could start with the obvious question, which everybody would like to know is how did you conceptualize or did you come up with the idea of the Ultimate Kho Kho League?
Well, this started off as a thought in 2017 while we were I was in Ernst& Young. And a lot of leagues had happened by then. There was an upsurge of leagues in India. There were multiple leagues, close to about 8 to 9 leagues happening, active leagues those years. And we thought that, what is the next best sport, which is a team sport, fast-paced, arena-style format, multiple other benchmarks which were taken, and Kho Kho actually came about. And then we got in touch with the federation, and I basically took care of the investors. So Mr. Amit Burman, Chairman Dabur, showed interest at the very, very beginning of this whole project coming about. And I think it took about a good solid 10 odd months to sort of take the deal through between the two parties. And from there, Ultimate Kho Kho was born. It's a long-term deal which the federation has given to Mr. Burman and his private entity to drive commercial leagues across all genders. And we are now looking at Ultimate Kho Kho coming in this year. After, of course, post-COVID, there have been multiple things, which is, the largest impact which has come into sports is the scheduling of sports events and broadcast. And 2020 being sort of a null and void year, 2021 is a jam-packed year. There are events overlapping, whether it is national or international, in multiple scenarios. So we're just looking at creating our season 1 this year's second half. So let's see. We're just really, really hopeful for an impact property coming in into the Indian sporting ecosystem.
You mentioned about COVID-19 impact. I mean, how did you guys overcome the challenges? I mean, knowing that there was, no assurance of the tournament going further. Also, even now we're saying, cases are rising every day. So how are you overcoming these challenges, which, are getting thrown on you daily?
See, there are two perspectives to it. One is, I think, very clearly comes about at the very, very first stage is player management, athletes. What has happened is that 2020 has impacted athletes the most. They've been at home, especially sports which are indigenous sport and not really very well funded. Athletes haven't had the time to actually go out, get their strength training in place, be match fit, be performance fit, so on and so forth. And the second part is, of course, the business side of the league, which everybody has to take care of, right? The financial and the economical side of the things. The first one, which is the players bit of it, we took a step in 2020 November. We started thinking about that because things were looking at the brighter side in 2021, and we envisioned something called a high performance training camp for upwards of 150 athletes in Gurgaon. What we did was that the 2019 national results, we actually handpicked the top 120 men's and 30 girls to come down to a sports science facility in Manav Rachna, Faridabad, for a 30-day camp, right? That was pretty much first of its kind. I hadn't heard anything prior to that in 2021. And what we did was a complete biomechanics training, strength training, before-after analysis of physical fitness, mental stability, psychography of the athletes, also adding a grooming angle to it to get them match fit and league fit, so to say. So I think that turned out to be a fabulous effort from the federation and Ultimate Kho Kho. I think that has given a lot of confidence to all the athletes who we just saw wrapping up the camp with a 4-day tournament happening in Indira Gandhi Indoor Stadium with lights, camera action. So it was fabulous. These kids played in under lights for the first time in their lives, and they got to know how it feels to be in a large format arena style sport. What Ultimate Kho Kho is now sort of, what we are envisioning. I think that was a critical part in our side to develop something post COVID scenario. The other part, of course, is the business side of it, which is where there are multiple angles which we've taken, and I believe that 2020 has been fabulous year for Ultimate Kho Kho, from strategizing business and forthcoming issues which can sort of and be sort of arrested at the advanced level, right? So what we've done is, because Ultimate Kho Kho is a very very fast paced sport, right? Kho Kho in the recent new avatar is humongous, right? So what we did was we got TV production agencies come back to us and pitch us at the right camera angles. That is very important and critical, because one side of the sport is on ground, where people come into the stadium and consume the sport, which is fabulous, right, in the new format. The other part is the largest segment of Indian audiences will be watching it on air. And that is where things were slightly sort of, I shouldn't say complicated, but can I say a difficult proposition for us to sort of take care of, And what we did was we did that side of the thing. So now in Feb end, we actually know which is the best camera angle for a fast-paced sport like this, which is great, because then that is where storytelling of a sport comes in from Kho Kho's perspective. And the other part, of course, is the fact that all our stakeholders were invited to this. So when I say stakeholders, I mean the broadcaster, the team owners, the TV production agencies, all the other gentlemen, all the other entities which are going to be involved in this were part of it and saw the sport live, and it helps in decision making in financial matters. So I think that's how we've sort of divided into two buckets and taken into consideration what the post-COVID scenario would be.
I think that's a great structure you followed, through and throughout. And so tell me, what has been the response of everyone, for Kho Kho? Like the popularity, about the fans?
See, the popularity at this point in time, Kho Kho itself is a widespread sport. It enjoys a massive fan following, right? It's pretty much in the similar pockets as Kabaddi. In certain markets, surprisingly, it is bigger than Kabaddi. But again, Kho Kho and Kabaddi have gone hand in hand ever since, right? So while one thing that we enjoy really proudly is the fact that from a grassroots standpoint, Kho Kho is leaps and bounds ahead of any other sport, right? Because it is widespread and it is part of the curriculum of government schools and CBSE schools. So, and now, of course, part of Khelo India ever since it started. So I think from keeping all of these things in mind, I think Kho Kho enjoys this massive fan following, and in both genders. And that's a point to be taken into consideration here. The women's side of Kho Kho, in my mind, would be equivalent to the boys' side of Kho Kho, which I keep thinking that which other sport has an equal women's playing population in India. And that's a fun fact, right? So that's beautiful. So in a sense, what we're saying is the family is engrossed in the consumption of that particular product. The second side of it is, of course, the bigger challenge for us was to create a compelling format for on air, which is, shall I say, easy in understanding for an 8 to 20-year-old age group. Although it's on the similar lines of catch or pakram pakrai or whatever we used to play when we were kids. It's just that it's got slight bit of rules in it, and we're trying to simplify that and make it more exciting for TV audiences and on-ground audiences. So now, looking at the current format, we've reduced the side of playing from 9 to 7. We've increased, we've reduced the time which is played per inning and per turn. And also we've introduced something which is very exciting called a format inclusion called a player called Wazir, who in the truest sense will be the joker of the pack, will be the trump card. and the wazir will have the opportunity to go in one particular flank and turn either left or right and score more points. When we introduced that, we saw that almost 35 to 40% of points being scored had escalated, which is fabulous because it is end of the day bringing us to a nail biting edge of the seat thriller, and that is what you need from a product which is being shown on air. So I think keeping all of this in mind, and especially the players who were playing it, when I was interacting with them, um, it was heartening to see the fact that, and you've been a player yourself, you'll understand that I've been a player myself. The fact is that when you change something which has been orthodox and been there for years, a rule change definitely affects the performance of a player, right? But that didn't happen, it only enhanced. And that was really heartening to see. So, from a player standpoint, if the players are happy, I think the athletes are happy. I think we're just bound for a good success story here.
And you really made a good point, because everyone in sports, and it's not only just in government schools. I mean, I was in a convent school and I used to play Kho Kho and Kabaddi all the time.
Really?
Although I was
Right.
a
There you
professional Kho Kho
go.
player, as I
Right.
mentioned, but I used to play Kho Kho and Kabaddi all the time. So,
Fabulous.
coming to that, do you see a potential synergy between Kho Kho and government? Because, I mean, government can take notes, they can perhaps boost Kho Kho as a sport and make it more formidable in their curriculum. Do you think there's a synergy for the Kho Kho Federation or the league to tie up with the governments?
See, it's a very valid question, and I must say that's already in action. It's work in progress. Um, Mr. Sudhanshu Mittal, who's the president of KKFI, is a very active president, and I've dealt with a lot of federation in my career. Uh, and I must mention that he's really forthcoming and a very dynamic personality. He has taken steps which are unique in their own fashion, and I must say that the government is been more than supportive for Kho Kho. Erstwhile Sports Minister Colonel Rathore had introduced the Khelo India Games, and that is where 16 disciplines were taken in. Kho Kho was one of them. And now, Sri Kiran Rijiju ji, Honorable Sports Minister, is of course taking it to another height. He was part of our inaugural camp, as a matter of fact, and he came in and he spoke some really great words about words of encouragement to our athletes. And the fact that this sport is actually an indigenous game gives itself a pedestal to sort of being promoted by the government, because end of the day, what I believe is the fact that these sort of sports are consumed by what I call Bharat, right? The hinterland of India, that's where the core audience is, the Hindi speaking market, right? And the fact that everybody relates to the sport, as you rightly said, right? As soon as you say Kho Kho or Kabaddi, for example, you go back to this nostalgia, a nostalgic trip, and then come back, right? The fact that that is there, I think the government recognizes it very, very well. They've supported us in being a representative sport in Asian Games in 2022. And I think the synergies are absolutely there, and the government is doing their bit in the national championships. They're giving all sorts of support. And I think the federation on their side is creating some fabulous inroads from, say, transitioning from mud to mat, a particular athlete. All the state federations are together. There is genuine scientific training going on within the thickness of the mat to reduce injuries in this case. There are specialized shoes which are being designed as we speak. There are specialized jerseys which are being designed as we speak. So it's another level is what I would suggest, from a federation. And for us, the federation is our communicating arm to the government. And I believe it will only show, success factors coming in with with this partnership with the government.
I think you mentioned about specialized shoes and jerseys. Tell us more about it. Sounds very interesting and very unique.
So see, what we're looking at, of course, I'll start off with the mat bit of it. So the mat is slightly sort of harder than kabaddi. because there is a lot of skydives which happen in Kho Kho. If you've seen the recent new avatar of Kho Kho, every 90 seconds there are these guys who are just diving almost like 2.5 meters in the air and landing on their chest and getting up and again running out, right? So we needed a mat which is not soft enough to stop their acceleration, but at the same time hard enough for them to fall and then get up at the same time and not get injured, right? With a dislocation of a shoulder or a chest injury and so on and so forth. So we actually did a lot of permutation combinations, and then finally we've zeroed into two options right now in terms of the thickness of the mat. The second level with that comes in the shoes. So the shoes are essentially ankle high shoes, which are there. So what you see in, say, for example, wrestling, kabaddi, so on and so forth, right? Boxing. Now, if you notice, Kho Kho also has the same shoes, which is ankle high shoes. Now, when they're hunching and waiting for a kho to happen, they need the acceleration. And then there's, of course, it's a very fast sport. So there's a lot of twists and turns, fast sprint, all of that is happening. So you need to restrict and secure and protect the ankle. But at the same time, come to think of it, ankle high shoes are used for sports which do not have too much of running. Boxing, wrestling, kabaddi, so on and so forth. All the other sports which have a lot of other running going around, which is soccer, baseball, so on and so forth, have always had regular shoes, not ankle high shoes. So we're debating on that at this point in time. It's a very interesting, scenario that whether we should, and what is the height of the ankle length shoe? Is it going to cover till your first bone of the shin, or should it come down just at the ankle? So we're looking at that so that it gives you the right momentum for acceleration, but at the same time protect you from injuries. So we're doing that. There are 2, 3 agencies who are working in it at this point in time, giving us samples, giving us shoes which are being tested at this very point in time by athletes. So that is one. Two is the jerseys. Jerseys typically have been, your regular dry fit t-shirts and shorts. But what we were thinking, and this is again a thought which is being brewed at this point in time, is the fact that we're looking at Ultimate Kho Kho athletes wearing Tour de France cycling gear, right? But without the zip, because when you fall on your chest, the zip could hurt you. The idea is to give them a superhuman kind of a avatar when they fly, right? Or when they do a pole dive, because they've, in my mind, Kho Kho is the fastest indoor sport India has ever seen. And you should see it when it gets launched. It is by far the fastest sport, faster than basketball in my mind. So keeping that in mind, of course, the jerseys which are being tested now are if you remember how the Ironmans or the triathlon athletes, they wear their jerseys, but they wear it with a zip here, and there is something which has got a Velcro as well, which is secured Velcro basically, and half sleeves with shorts there. So we're looking at those things which could be developed, which could give a new feel to the sport, right? And that is important. And we're just testing these things at this point in time with the athletes. Let's see where we head to that.
I think all these things, combined will make like Ultimate Kho Kho a huge brand. I mean, and that too like very inherent to Indians, like
That's
you said,
the
because
idea.
we've been
That's the
playing
idea.
it forever. Great. So, tell us about brand sponsors who've come on board. I know Dabur is there in a very big capacity. So tell me about their role, and then, consequently about how other sponsors are approaching to you, or if they're not, then why they should.
See, sponsors, to talk about sponsors would be slightly premature at this point in time, in my mind. So, starting off with Dabur, it's Mr. Amit Burman's personal capacity investment. Dabur doesn't necessarily have anything to do with Ultimate Kho Kho. Just the fact that Mr. Amit Burman is the chairman of Dabur, I think the name keeps cropping up every now and then. But it's a personal capacity investment from Amit. The other side of the story is that, as I said, sponsors will be phase two. Phase one is getting the right stakeholders in terms of team owners who are coming in, right? The idea from the very beginning was very clear that we need to have the right set of stakeholders who have the two things. One is the intention and one is the might. Intention of growing the sport in the catchment area, is very, very important, because anyone who picks up Kho Kho is going to be part of a gold mine where you will have multiple thousands and thousands of kids who are playing Kho Kho, as I said, right? Because of the fan following which this particular sport enjoys. So, how do you sort of encash and explore and exploit that population in order to building up the next pool of athletes is very, very critical, right? Because that is where your catchment area would be. So for example, if a particular conglomerate, business house or a Bollywood celebrity picks up a particular area, let's just say for example, hypothetical scenario, Gujarat, then how do you expand that particular region in developing grassroots school contact programs? How do you excite those kids? How do you show them the larger picture, the bigger dream of participating in Ultimate Kho Kho and enriching your talent, from Ultimate Kho Kho standpoint? That is one. Two is the financial might. Of course, people, again, as I said, my first point, that there was a time where there were close to about 8 to 10 leagues in India, right? And they were launching, and unfortunately, after 1 years of launch, could not sustain themselves, right? Why does that happen? That happens because maybe the business model didn't suit either the league rights holder or the discussion or the dialogue or the arrangement with the broadcaster or the stakeholders who are the team owners, and they could not see the light at the end of the tunnel. And that is very, very critical. So these are few things which I've had in my mind in terms of sustaining Ultimate Kho Kho team owners for a longer duration, a long-term investment, because sports investments does not give you returns immediately. And what better example than IPL, right? It's the biggest sporting extravaganza that Indian soil witnesses every year. There are the biggest of corporate houses who are party to it, and they've broken even in their seventh or eighth year as a business house. So when you're looking at an indigenous sport at a much lesser percentage of investment, but nonetheless, the business model still flows in the similar fashion. The line items of expenses and the line item of costs are pretty much the same from a league standpoint. You have your basic expenses, you've got your basic revenue line items. So from that perspective, I was very, very critical and very cognizant of the fact that we will get like-minded stakeholders who will share the journey, share the vision, share the dream, believe in it, and go hand in hand with us. And no one party shall break even before the other, right? And when I say that, I mean the league vis-a-vis the franchisees. Uh, my philosophy always has been the fact that a healthy franchise is equal to a healthy league. And that is so very important to build a sustainable model. So from that perspective, we've got some very good names to answer your question. We've got two IPL franchise owners who are investing into Ultimate Kho Kho. There's this one Bollywood gentleman who's be investing in this, and there's this Punjabi music pop star who might be looking into buying a team. These are 4 out of the 6 teams what we are looking at. The remaining 2 teams are might be going into a big TV news network and a couple of other guys. So there are some exciting conversations going on at this point in time. I can tell you that the mix of these guys will be fabulous and never seen before.
That's amazing, and I'm glad so many people have come forward to support the league,
Yeah,
because it sounds such a prospect, like such a good potential league, and considering everybody knows about Kho Kho, and I'm sure to watch it on TV, and as you said, you're adopting it for a TV audience. I think it's going to
yeah,
propel the league further, and so I think I've asked all the questions. And thank you so much for all those insight, Tenzing. I mean, obviously, I will catch up with you and try to ask you who's that Bollywood actor and who are the
sure,
team owners who are interested.
sure.
But overall, a great conversation. Thank you so much for being coming on the show today, Tenzing. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you.